Well, hello, friends. Welcome to Coming Down. My name's Nathan. I'm sitting here with Matthew.
Greetings, everyone.
Hey, so we totally forgot to celebrate our podcast being old enough to drink last week.
Wow, with the episode that it landed on?
Right.
That is a gross oversight.
I know. So, look, happy belated podcast.
I mean, we were already drinking before we were of age, so,
That's true. Yep.
Guess that milestone just kind of passed without a blink.
So we're on episode 22 this week. That's pretty fantastic. I don't have a ton of fanfare to talk about, and in fact, we have our guest here for our Patreon exclusive episode that we're about to record. So hopefully that'll be awesome, and that'll be up soon for all the patrons to check out.
Hell yeah!
But I guess I'll throw a couple little notes in here. First of all, we managed to fuck up again and not put one of our phones in airplane mode. So there is a little bit of static noise in this one. It's way less than the other one, but look, it's there. So sorry about that. But
we caught it midstream, but...
We did, actually, yeah. It totally cuts out after the first, 30 minutes, so...
Because I moved his phone.
You did. Hey, not pointing fingers or anything, but...
Sorry, didn't mean to out anyone.
But yeah, this episode is near and dear to my heart. This is my friend Brett, longtime friend, probably one of my oldest friends at this point that I still talk to, and he was out here for the wedding, and we got to sit down and do this one and regale some old stories, which was great.
Hell yeah. He was also the original co-host for this podcast.
Well, not co-host,
or at least guest.
The one long lost episode that I did years ago, he was the first one that I did one with. So should I still actually get that hard drive working, we'll get that episode, and it's a good one. But yeah, it was great having him on, and we talked. There's a few different stories on here, so it's a good time. But and then I also just want to promote him again because he does our glorious intro music and outro music.
So good, man.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out the full track on that, you can go to colorforce, COLOUR force.bandcamp.com. You can hear the full version of that song. It's fantastic. But he's got some other bands too that will have links up. So if you go to our website, comingdownpod.com, and go to the Friends tab. That's where we list, we have all our shout outs to our patrons and everything, but then at the top there we'll have links to all of his current bands that he has going. Stella Luce is one of his primary bands, and they've got a new album dropping this spring, and I've heard some snippets, and it's excellent. They have a single out with a great video, so definitely check that out. And he's got another project called Kill Your Darlings that you can check out, and they've got 1 or 2 tracks up, so... so anyway, definitely check that out. This is all about Brett and promoting his music and how awesome he is.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, we already mentioned the Patreon. You can check that out, patreon.com/comingdownpod. If you feel like you got a couple bucks you want to drop us, just stop by there. We already mentioned the website, and that's going to have all our links to all the platforms that we're on. That's going to be Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, YouTube. I think we still have SoundCloud rolling, although sort of barely.
Yeah.
And
more to come.
If you feel like leaving a rate and review on Stitcher, that would be super rad. Did I miss anything? Oh, Twitter. Check us out on Twitter at comingdownpod. Email is comingdownpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, let us know if you want to be on the show.
Yeah, totally. The guest episodes have just been so fruitful lately. We're going to have just a lot of those coming up. So
I'm loving it, man.
Yeah, it's been great.
Gives us more time to sandbag our good ones.
I know, right? I know. Oh, man. God, yeah, we haven't even done personal ones lately at all, so...
It's coming.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, without further ado, let's roll. I'm trying to think, are there even any other AI movies that aren't doom and gloom?
There are a couple. I'm trying to think what they are. But yeah, I fucking hate the just oh, the robots just suddenly become self-aware
Right.
and start killing us for no reason, you know?
Well, and Spielberg's ending to Kubrick's movie was just such a fucking letdown for me when I was in the theater. I'm just like, oh, it just got all cartoony and circusy. Like, what?
Yeah, I actually liked that ending, but I'm kind of a rare breed in that.
So have you guys seen the British show Humans?
I've seen the first season and maybe a little bit of the second season.
Okay.
I've never
So
seen
little
it.
too
There's
rapey
3
for
seasons
me,
now.
but, like,
Wait, what?
I don't know, like, just...
There's that one scene in one episode. Is like,
Is that it? Okay.
that's the only thing. Well, oh no, okay. There is when in the beginning she's working in that brothel. That scene's really rough.
Yeah.
That's really rough. But yeah, okay. So seriously, like, there's 2 scenes in the entire series, and they're both in season 1.
All right, fair enough. Maybe I'm getting it conflated with Westworld.
Yeah, Westworld is a whole other
right
thing.
on.
Yeah,
But, I
yeah.
mean, I've seen all of
Westworld
it, so
is fucking Game of Thrones and the Wild West. Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, super. Yeah. Like, just unnecessarily violent. No, Humans is like very cerebral. Obviously, it's British, so they actually stop to think about things instead of just having, you know, violence and sex, and, you know,
Yeah.
sentient AIs are just a vehicle to get to the violence and sex.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, it deals with, you know, the idea of the, you know, the sentient robots, and even like, I mean, the robots are slaves, you know. It's the typical trope, you know, the slave robots wake up and they're like, hey, we don't want to be slaves anymore, like, you know. But instead of immediately going to like war, you know, war between the robots and the fucking humans, it's like, it's more about like a struggle for civil rights, you know. It's like the robots are like, hey, we deserve to be treated as, you know, equals, and the humans are like, fuck you. Because that's what humans do.
Right.
And, you know, but it takes a look at like a lot of different like individual lives on each side of it, you know, like human lives that are affected and robot lives that are affected, and like, you know, like there's like teenagers growing up in this world where it's like, well, why should I bother to learn anything in school or like try and get a job or do anything with my life, because like I could go to medical school for the next 6 years, get my fucking, you know, my MD, become a doctor, and by the time I graduate, there will be a fucking machine that can, you know, perform surgery with 100% accuracy, and
Right.
like, you know, like there's literally not a single job that a human can do better than a machine anymore. And so, like, you know, like the humans are just like,
Even
what's
designing magic cards.
Yeah, it's true.
what's the point of us, you know, even existing at this point? The machines have taken away everything from us, you know, and then the machines suddenly become like sentient, and they're like, hey, we want civil rights. And the humans are like, you already took everything else from us, fuck you, you know?
They took our jobs.
Right? Totally. But, you know, it's you know, it kind of explores all the different facets and all the different viewpoints and all the different, you know, ways of, you know, that the situation affects individuals on both sides.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. All
It's
right.
a lot more
I'll have to check that
thoughtful
out.
than any American AI story you'll ever fucking see.
Oh, for sure. Nobody actually wants to like confront the whole like our robots people angle in American AI stories for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, it's
They're
like,
just trying to get to the violence as quickly as
it's
possible.
robot war.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
That shit bores the fuck out of me. I want to like, I want to think about, you know, the
Well,
philosophical implications of sentience.
I love the idea that
Yeah.
R2 and C-3PO are the viewpoint characters of the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
And that it's really about robot slavery.
Right?
That's a fucking interesting angle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, holy
Absolutely.
shit.
Absolutely. I love it.
That's great.
Yeah. I love that they're the consistent thread through all the movies.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, I love that they kept that, you know, that like they may not be like point of view characters necessarily through all of them, but like they are the one thing that is consistent through all 9 movies.
That is true.
Presumably, assuming that they're in the 9th one, which obviously they're going to be.
Yeah. That would be like one of the worst fuck ups they've done if they did that in that movie, Holy shit. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but like, I'd be surprised.
Indeed. Well, speaking of violence, I don't know what the segue is here.
Killing it.
Yeah, so sitting down with my friend Brett, who came out for the wedding and hung out for a few extra days, and he's gonna tell us a story.
Oh, are we?
Oh yeah, we're rolling.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, I guess just set the stage. How old were you when this happened?
Oh, probably like right around 18.
Yeah.
17, 18, 19, somewhere in there.
So this
I don't know.
Probably right before I met you and we started hanging out.
It was right around that time, probably. Yeah. 18 it had to have been because, probably just before we met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
So about 18 years old, my friend Zach and I were taking his cousin down to DIA, Denver Airport. She had a flight that left probably at like 5 in the morning or something. So instead of get up super early and drive her down there at 3 a.m., we decided to go down to Denver the night before, take a bunch of acid, party all night, and then drop her off at the airport. We roll into DIA at maybe like 2 in the morning, and I had a 10 strip of acid. We split half of it, so we're each on probably 2 or 3 hits of acid, and I had the other half in my pocket. And this was just this is pre 9/11.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So,
the 90s acid boom is still in effect.
Right. Yeah, obviously, different times in a lot of ways, but also this story takes place at an airport. So if you're asking yourselves, how did this possibly happen at an airport? This was
there wasn't the heightened security.
Pre 9/11. Yeah.
Right.
So
it used to be you just walked through a metal detector and that was it.
For those of you who don't know, back before 9/11, you didn't actually have to have a plane ticket to go through security at an airport.
Right.
Anyone could just wander around at 2 in the morning high on acid and
just go hang out in the terminal. And,
if you didn't have a gun on you, you were pretty much good to go.
Right. You needed a ticket to get on a plane, but you could fuck off anywhere in the airport.
Yeah, and DIA has this tram system, this underground train that takes you between the terminals.
Right.
And so, we're tripping. It's 2 in the morning. We're riding this underground train in circles around DIA, just having a blast. Yeah. Tripping out, and we eventually get bored of that. So we go back out to the parking garage where Zach's car was parked. His cousin is just asleep in the backseat of the car at this point. She's passed out. And we're just...
So you dragged her out to Denver, took acid, and was like, I don't know, I guess you could sleep in the car or whatever.
Yeah.
This is how you're getting a ride.
It's like, if you want a ride to the airport, you're gonna, have to party with us in Denver. And she didn't want to, be coming down off of acid on her plane. So she,
It's reasonable.
I think, she partied with us a little bit, but she didn't take any acid. So she was asleep at this point. We're running around DIA, tripping and having fun. And eventually we just come back out to the parking garage. And we grabbed some weed, climbed up on top of Zach's car, and we're sitting on top of his car, smoking a joint.
Like on the roof?
On the roof of his car. We're sitting on the roof of his car smoking a joint. In the parking garage of an international airport.
Yeah, it's fine.
This is the 90s. This is just how we rolled back then.
Fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Was this the brown station wagon?
It was the brown station wagon.
So
the one we used to have to do Flintstone stops on for a while because it didn't have brakes.
it had 0 brakes. I mean,
for like a month. Which I say this as like, oh, it wasn't for that long, but when it came out of my mouth, suddenly I'm like, wow, we drove that car without brakes for a month.
Yeah, I mean, I think the emergency brake was at like 10%, but but he knew that like overusing it was going to wear it out, and so that was for definite emergencies.
No. The emergency brake was for always. What we would do is we would drive very, very slowly. And then whenever you came up on a stop, and you had to get this process started like 2 blocks ahead of time, he would pull the emergency brake all the way, and then we'd all open the doors of the car. Anyone who was in the car had to open their door, and we'd start pushing the ground with our feet. And we had to literally like stop the car with our feet. The emergency brake would get you halfway there, but you literally had to open your doors and stop the car with your feet.
Now,
well, and barring that, we would just make a lot of right turns,
Yeah,
sure.
The goal was to never have to come to a complete stop.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and so we'd run all the stop signs we possibly could, only make right-hand turns, stuff like that. But when you saw that light turn red up ahead, it was everyone open your doors because we're Flintstone in this bitch,
Oh my god.
Well, and more than once with you guys, we would just run a light. It was like, okay, we don't have time to stop. We can't make a right turn. We're just going through this light.
right, absolutely. And yeah, you had to make that decision like 2 blocks ahead of time because if you didn't have enough time, it was going to end in disaster. So
now, did any officers of the law ever witness this kind of?
Yes.
So there was an accident at one point. We did finally run a red light and hit someone, and that's when the cops were like, "Yeah, you're not allowed to drive this car anymore until you get your brakes fixed."
Okay, but it wasn't like they pulled you over for like stomping your feet on the ground.
No,
okay.
never got pulled over.
I distinctly remember once running a red light. And we all look over, and there's a cop, and we all just waved. And we were just like, we're doing it. And they didn't pull us over. They must have something more pressing.
Wow.
But,
that whole chapter didn't end until there actually was an accident. We T-boned someone running a red light.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay?
It was, we were going very slowly, obviously.
Sure.
This car had like a max speed of like 15 miles an hour at that point because you always had to be ready to stop.
Okay, so it's like hitting someone on a bicycle.
It was hitting someone in slow motion for sure. Like there was very little damage done to either car and no one was injured. But the cop arrived on the scene and it's like, okay, taking his report, what caused why did you guys roll through a red light at 15 miles an hour into oncoming traffic? Well, because the brakes on our car don't work. She's like,
all nonchalant, the brakes don't work.
Yeah,
Of course that's why we ran the light.
We tried. I mean, we were Flintstone and it the best we could, but it just didn't quite stop in time,
what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. So we got the brakes fixed, and then eventually we're able to drive down to Denver to do acid at an airport.
Okay, so this car has its working brakes. You guys are sitting on the roof smoking a joint on acid.
So we're smoking a joint. Like I said, I've got the other half of our 10 strip in my pocket in a pack of cigarettes, and Zach, who was selling weed at the time, had multiple ounces of weed split up into individual baggies like eighths and quarters in his car. Just sitting in it like a backpack in the back seat, or I actually was in the front seat. His cousin was in the back seat at that point.
Right. Now, are these baggies in like a Tupperware, or are they just kind of loose in the backpack?
Probably loose in the backpack, yeah. We couldn't afford Tupperware. We had to fix those brakes, man. We were all tapped out at this point. We had to sell some of that weed.
You're lucky we had fucking baggies, man.
Right, exactly. So So, I mean, basically multiple felonies on us, for sure.
And this is even decriminalization.
Oh, way pre-decriminalization. Right. Yeah, it wasn't even, like, medical,
sure.
Like, at this point.
Was Colorado a zero-tolerance state?
No.
Okay.
No mandatory minimums or anything, but like...
Was it a felony if it was less than an ounce, or was it like a misdemeanor?
It wasn't...
No, it wasn't unless it was in separate baggies.
Right.
You have any amount of weed in separate baggies, and it's automatically intent to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Manufacturer, etc.
Right. But we definitely had multiple ounces in separate baggies.
Yeah, and at that point you're just like,
right.
10 ways from
Not
Sunday,
to mention the acid, which is an automatic felony. So.
Oh, right, because you still had some on you.
Yeah,
you guys are doing great.
Yeah, we're doing solid. So we're smoking a joint on top of a car.
Nothing's gonna go wrong in this story.
No.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, you wanted me to tell a boring story with no fun ending, right?
And then we drove home.
Yeah.
Totally. Cousin got on a plane.
She got on her plane. We waved her goodbye. We got in the car. We drove home. Had a good sleep.
Great
Woke
story.
up the next day. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Love it.
Yeah. No. So we're up on top of this car. We're smoking a joint. This little old lady comes walking by through the parking garage, and we're all happy and high and having fun, and we're smiling, wave to her, hey, how's it going? Good morning. And she just gives us the meanest, nastiest look anyone's ever given anyone.
Oh, no.
And keeps walking. And maybe 5-10 minutes later, we're still sitting up on top of the car. Thankfully, we've finished the joint at this point.
Right.
But we're just sitting on top of the car, probably smoking a cigarette at this point. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like just probably 5 cop cars come in simultaneously from every direction. Like they, planned it to just converge on us from all directions simultaneously. Jesus. There are cops with their guns already drawn, jumping out of the cars, like before they're even fully stopped, screaming, "Get down on the fucking ground, motherfuckers!"
Whoa.
And just like, pointing guns at us, and we're just like stunned. Cops are dragging us by our clothing off the top of this car, throwing us face down in the concrete.
Whoa.
Suddenly, I'm face down on the ground. There is a boot in my back, and the what do you call it? Muzzle? The muzzle of a gun pressed hard into the back of my neck. And I'm just like, oh, this is it. This is the night I go to prison for the next 20 years. This is it.
Jesus.
I am going to have to go through intake on 3 hits of acid.
God.
I am going to be in prison for the next 20 fucking years,
Good times.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
fucking brutal.
And so, they handcuff us, handcuffs behind our back, drag us up against a wall and sit us down there, and we're just sitting on the ground against this wall. And they see, the girl asleep in the back of our car, and they start questioning her. They haven't had a time to like search it. They patted us down for weapons before they handcuffed us. But they haven't actually like emptied our pockets or anything yet, and they're kind of like talking to this girl who they've woken up in the car we were sitting on, but they haven't actually started looking through the car yet.
Right.
And we're just sitting there like, we're, this is happening. We're going to prison on acid. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're just trying to like come to terms with the fact that this is your life now. Like, this is the end of the good times and the beginning of the fucking shittiest chapter of your entire life.
I died today.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, the cops are walking away from the car back towards us, and they've got kind of like a sheepish look on their face. And they pick us up, like physically pick us up, take the handcuffs off, like literally brush the dirt off of us, shake our hands, apologize, get in their cars and drive away.
Oh my god. Only
And
on LSD. does
We're
this
like
shit
standing
happen.
there just like, what the fuck just happened? And we go over, we talk to Zach's cousin, and she's like, well, yeah, I mean, the first thing they asked was like, you know, who I was, what I was doing here. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just taking a nap while I wait to board my plane in a couple hours, you know, like, my cousin and his friend drove me down here to get on a plane, and so they asked to see my ticket, and I show them my plane ticket. And then they were like, well, whose car is this? It's my cousin Zach's car. He drove me down to get on the plane. And then they asked for the registration, so I gave him the registration. And they looked at Zach's driver's license, and they looked at the registration of the car. And they're like, oh,
There's actually nothing going on here at all. Actually.
some old lady told us that these guys were breaking into cars.
Through the roof, which is how you do it.
Apparently.
You break in by sitting on the roof.
That's the pro way.
And
Yeah,
talking to
that's how the
people.
pros do it. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely say hi to them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So this little old lady
What a
had
mean
gone
old lady.
gone
Good
into the
God.
fucking airport and immediately found some security person and told them we were breaking into cars. And as soon as the cops realized that the car we were supposedly breaking into actually belonged to us, they realized that we had broken 0 laws that they knew about,
Right.
and literally apologized to us and drove away. And that was the end of that story.
Dude, holy shit.
Yeah, and looking back on it, it's like fucking thanks to white privilege, that's the end of the fucking story. Because
Fucking A, right?
in any other circumstance, if we weren't a couple of white kids in Colorado, the Denver Police Department's famous for shooting people, but they only shoot people with dark skin, so
Yep.
we got real lucky that
And this
day.
has come up recently on this podcast because
It's come up in basically all of our close calls stories.
yeah, and this is we have so many close calls with the law stories, and it's just like looking back on those, we just realize how much the white privilege thing played into that.
Absolutely.
And it's just crazy,
I mean,
Seriously.
this is just one of many stories from my teenage years where it was like, how the fuck did we not get arrested
Right.
tonight? Like, why are we still partying instead of in jail or dead? And yeah, looking back on it, man, I hate to say it, but like, the answer seems to usually be because we were white kids.
Oh, yeah.
That's, and we didn't realize it at the time. I don't think we really had that in our, it wasn't something we were conscious of at the time, but in the day and age we live in now, it's becoming apparent that
It wasn't really part of our cultural, lexicon back then,
exactly,
Right.
and
Well, and-
it's coming to light now that shit,
Yeah.
it was even harder to understand. I mean, and I think Bend was similar to Fort
Oh,
Collins in that
absolutely.
there just weren't very many black people anyway. So
sure.
I wasn't thinking about much of a separation anyway because
Right.
there just weren't. You know,
Right.
there.
Well, there were migrant workers and stuff, but for the most part, they lived in the outer communities that were cheaper than Bend,
Yep.
because there were smaller towns around Bend that were even smaller than Bend, and that's where the migrant workers
Sure.
Yeah,
To a
when
certain
that lived,
extent, yeah.
Yeah, all the
front
migrant
ranges like that,
workers
too.
lived in
Greeley.
north. Well, in Greeley, yeah, but like way north end of town back when it used to be
Right.
like pretty ghetto.
Yeah. So
Well, and, I
it
mean,
wasn't in our consciousness at the time, but man, looking back, like we were really lucky we were who we were, because that could have ended very, very differently.
Right?
I mean, there was a gun pressed as hard as he could press it into the back of my head.
Also,
And
that's so fucking
that
nuts.
trigger did not get pulled, like that's
all of that aside, that is a very aggressive reaction to car theft.
Yeah, even just to burglary, that is
yeah.
wicked gnarly. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
It seemed like incredible overkill, but man, I mean, again, the Denver Police Department is known for their excessively violent reactions to things.
It's true. And even pre 9/11 world, I'm sure they still take security seriously at an airport.
Too. Absolutely, so, yeah. They were a lot more lax about letting people wander around, but yeah, if a crime got committed at an airport, they were gonna be real serious about it, obviously. Yeah, so that's the story.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Have you ever had a gun pulled on you again by a cop? Or is that
No, that was a one-time. I've had a lot of run-ins with cops back in the day, but that was the only time guns were involved.
Oh, God.
Man.
Thankfully. Thankfully.
Absolutely.
It was terrifying.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna say that I wouldn't have pissed my pants in that situation, but like, whew, damn, dude, that's some fucking crazy shit.
Oh man, yeah, that's totally crazy. I guess we did bring it up earlier, so if we wanted to add on another cop story, we could talk about that time they came to the basement.
That was a good time, yeah. Have you talked much about Sane on
I have not even brought it up because I don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
But I guess this would be a fine place to begin.
I guess it would because, we kind of created that little reality bubble together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess precursor, we moved into this basement apartment with this guy named Mikey. We were both homeless, or I was in the process of getting kicked out and moving out of my parents, and you had just got out of the apartment with Zach, or you had maybe been floating around for a while.
I had actually been homeless for a while.
Yeah, you were just floating around for a while.
I was about 19, and I had been off and on, like, homeless and, like, couch surfing for, like, almost 3 years at that point.
Yeah.
And I had a mushroom connection, and
that's right.
There's that
we had
dude
already started selling the mushrooms.
Well, that's how I got the money to get us into that. That's right.
How
all of that rent got paid at that house.
That is how all that rent got.
All of that rent got paid through mushroom money. But that guy from Boulder who was a grower and needed a connection in Fort Collins.
And that wasn't his real name, so I don't even mind saying that.
No. Yeah, who knows who he was, but he just picked me out in, like, Old Town Square one day and was like, hey, dude, you look like you could get some fucking mushrooms distributed around this town. I need someone to distribute them. And suddenly I had, like, pounds of mushrooms coming up to me. On a weekly basis, because
we bought a couple ounces off of him, and then like the third time you met him, he was like, "Hey, I could just front you like a QP or whatever," and you're like, "All right, we can get into business."
Pretty soon, we were driving down to Boulder like once a week and buying a pound of mushrooms from this guy. And that's how we got in. That is how it all started. That's how I got off the streets.
And so we knew this guy named Mikey, and he just happened to have a room open up, and we managed to somehow convince him to let both of us move in and sort of like split that room / one of us would sleep on the couch.
Right. And we kind of alternated couch. Yeah. Actually, most of the time everyone just fell asleep on the couches because like we would all be partying until we just kind of passed out wherever we were sitting. And
but we pretty much took this apartment over. Like, it was Mikey's apartment, but we rolled in and put up like Christmas lights everywhere, like built a little shrine in the fireplace. I mean, just completely, started painting on the walls.
Yeah, our friend Austin did this huge mural in the entryway hallway.
Yeah.
Our other friend Chelsea, who did that painting right there, did some Alice in Wonderland murals in the bedrooms.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. What about what time slice is this in your lives? Like, how old are you guys?
I was 19. He was probably like 17, 16.
Okay. Yeah. I had, we moved in there, and I actually still entertained the idea of continuing going to high school, but that didn't last much longer, and that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, just sort of to set the stage for this basement apartment. And I mean,
this is like 99.
So yeah,
99,
yeah, about 99. And
so yeah, this is all perfect for like exactly when you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was the height of
this
fucking
was
ideal.
Basically right after the DIA story, and it was definitely the height of psychedelics in Fort Collins, at least. I don't know.
I mean, what
the rest of the country's been like,
wave
but it was
on the West Coast was kind of cresting. I think right about then. You know?
Yeah, so the acid had really fallen off at this point. I did most of my acid the couple years previous to this, but then we got this mushroom hookup, and then it was just mushrooms for days. So, and that's pretty much what we got into.
We had, I remember, so, like I said, we'd drive down to Boulder, we'd pick up like a pound of mushrooms, we'd come back, and we'd separate them out into bags, and you'd have like, some ounce bags and some, half ounces, quarters, eighths. When we got down to the end of it, we had measured out everything, there'd always be like maybe like an eighth worth of just shake,
right,
random
stuff.
At the bottom of the bag, and that all went into this like glass candy bowl, like that old ladies, grandmas have their little glass jar with the candies in it, right? Well, we had one of these, lit it with a lid on it, and it was on our coffee table, and we just dump whatever was left over every time into that bowl. And if you came into our house, you were part of the family, and if you were part of the family, then whatever was in that bowl was yours. You could take as much as you wanted, anytime you wanted. It was free, it was there for the taking.
The community shrooms bowl.
Yeah, it was just the community shrooms bowl.
And along with that, we had a big tray that was always just full of weed.
Right.
And that'll play into this story.
Didn't have to ask, like if you needed to get high, just grab some weed off the weed tray and roll a joint or load a bong, or there were, 10 fucking bongs laying around the living room always.
Well, and if
pipes everywhere.
And if there wasn't weed in the house and you were looking for weed, all you had to do was buy us 2 orders of Tricky Sticks from Pizza Pipeline.
Oh, god damn it.
Yep.
Ask for a specific delivery driver, and that driver would show up with 2 orders of Tricky Sticks and sell however much weed to whoever in the house wanted it.
Hey, bro, can I get the Bob Marley special?
Pretty much.
For us, it was Tricky Sticks. That was the code. Like, send... I don't know his name, but the guy's name is like...
Send Joe with 2 orders of Tricky Sticks.
Send Joe with 2 orders of Tricky Sticks. And, that was how we got weed. So,
and they even got to the point, too, where we'd put in an order for 2 Tricky Sticks, and they'd be like, is this 405 Stewart or whatever? And we're like, yeah. And they'd be like,
Albert.
That you want Joe to deliver? And we'd be like, yeah. Hilarious. Yeah.
So
405 Albert, that was it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So anyway,
well, and so we named this place. So because it became this psychedelic haven for us and all of our friends, we named the place Sane, because when you were there, you were insane. Cheesy, dumb, but that's what it was.
We thought it was funny when we were stoned teenagers.
I love it.
Yeah, but I mean, you walk in and it's just all the walls are painted in these psychedelic murals. There's Christmas lights hanging everywhere. At one point,
I don't know if there was a white light in the house.
Yeah, I don't think there was at all.
Reasonable.
All the light bulbs were replaced with colored light bulbs. Psychedelic shrine in the living room, in the fireplace. At one point, we blacked out all the windows, put strobe lights in every room, and didn't go outside or turn on any lights other than strobe lights for 3 days. Did mushrooms the entire time. Didn't sleep. And so I mean, it was a crazy place. You never knew what was going to happen on any given day in Sane, but it was always something insane.
It really was. Yeah, we went hard for the year or whatever we lived there.
Hardcore. So one of our friends, I mean, on just any given night, people would just stop by and they'd buy drugs, or they'd have drugs, or they'd do drugs. Or sometimes they'd just be on drugs. There was a dude, what was his name? Sean, who would like
Creepy Sean.
Yeah, Creepy Sean would come over. He was really into GHB.
Oh no.
Which is was a thing for like a year back in the 90s.
I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Like, it can be fun, but like also I've known people who are really into it who are fucking dangerous.
Yeah, dude. The people who get really into it are fucking weird, right?
Yeah, right.
So Creepy Sean would come over, just fucked up on GHB and like crawl all over people and get all gropey, and then he'd eventually then he'd eventually fall asleep on the floor, and then I don't know if this happened just once or like a couple times, but at least once we would, he'd fall asleep, and then everyone else in the house would fall asleep, and we'd just be passed out on couches. And then we woke up in the morning and he'd be gone, but he had woken up at some point during the night and written a bunch of poetry on the walls in Sharpie about watching us sleep.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I remember talking
like
to you
next
guys
to
about
our
this
heads
wedding,
on the walls there would be these poems about watching us sleep.
Yeah, really creepy poems too.
No.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, he was Mikey's friend, and I think we had to have a talk about Sean.
Yeah.
But
well,
also,
Mikey is a whole story in and of himself.
Yeah.
Man. That guy, we could do a whole podcast just about that guy.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But so for the purposes of this story, there was another guy, Phil, who showed up tripping really hard on God knows what. That guy was
he would get into
he got into
stuff.
like weird obscure drugs,
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
2CB and
he's the guy who's like, like he'd be like, oh yeah, I went out in the forest and picked a bunch of moonflower and
or like
weird
Anamitas
shit.
and stuff.
Oh, no.
He was into
Yeah, like Crimson weed.
Weird
and fucking,
shit. Yeah, like that, right?
No.
So you don't even know what he was on, Like he showed up at our house in the middle of the night, just like so far gone that you couldn't even communicate with him. And it's like, okay, fine, this is a safe place,
Yeah.
We've created this little safe bubble of reality where everyone's safe to, just be as fucked up as they want, and it's fine, and stay here until you come down. And we all eventually passed out on the couches as we did.
As we were wont to do.
Yeah. As is our custom. And Phil apparently started calling his mother on the phone over and over again. This is back in the days of landlines.
Right. When we had a house phone.
If the kids don't know what a landline is, who are listening, we actually had a phone plugged into our wall.
It was like the phone in your pocket, but without a screen, and everyone shared it.
There's a thing called long distance where you had to pay more if it was calling someone outside of town.
So he gets on our phone and starts calling his mom at like 3 a.m, waking her up and spouting long strings of numbers at her.
Yeah.
Like not talking to her, but just like he'd call her up and just start spouting numbers at her, right? And so she, after like the third or fourth time that she's hung up and he just calls her right back and starts spouting numbers at her again, she eventually gets worried and calls the police. The police trace where his call had come from and find that it came from our house.
Oh, fuck.
And they arrive, and he's the only one awake. So when they knock on the door, he just opens the door and lets them in to our house.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
And
and there's plenty of things in this house that we didn't want cops to
I wake
find.
up.
Yeah.
I mean, I wake up on a couch, and literally right in front of my face, there's like a 3-foot bong, 3-foot glass bong, sitting like 2 inches from my head, and a cop standing over me looking down at the bong. And on our coffee table is just this tray with a pile of weed on it.
Oh, man.
And there's
and we've got the
pipes
5-foot
everywhere.
hookah over in the corner.
You got the 5-foot hookah over in the corner. Yep. 4 tube hookah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, just like you can't in any direction you look in this living room, there's at least 3 incriminating things.
Just like crimes,
Yeah.
crimes, more crimes.
Yeah, and there's like 2 cops standing in our living room with wide eyes, just like they're terrifying.
Well, yeah, and
they have
that's to say
stepped
nothing.
into another dimension. These guys are in fucking Narnia, right? Like they have
through the looking glass.
no frame of reference for like what they're experiencing at this point. And basically the cop like explains the situation to us. He's like, yeah, your friend kept calling his mom and waking her up in the middle of the night and spouting numbers at her. She's worried for him and like asked us to come see if he's okay, and the cop, seriously, he said, I'm not interested in coming into anyone's home and telling them what they can and can't do in the privacy of their own home,
Wow. This is
So,
like the
like,
most reasonable cop of all
Right?
time.
know,
I
right?
couldn't believe it. I literally could not believe what I'm hearing. He's like, dude, like, keep it in your fucking living room, guys. But, like, if you want to, like, we're not interested in busting you for weed tonight,
He's like, the amount of paperwork that we're looking at here.
Well, I think, they were terrified about, like, spending the next month doing paperwork on this one fucking bus. Like, where would you even start?
And that's not the first time that I've speculated that a cop let me off because he just didn't want to deal with the hassle of like everything is going to have to go down.
Oh, right? No, I mean, like, I've got my friends have so many stories of like parties out in the woods with tons of beer underage, and the cop was just like, dump it out, It's like, because we were all fucking white kids and they didn't want to deal with it,
right?
Like,
and I think this cop, like, he had to respond to the call that he got. But if no one else ever finds out what he saw when he got there, like, he was apparently okay with that. He was like, dude, we're, I'm not here to deal with all of this.
right.
Wait.
I'm here to deal with that dude.
Yeah.
And we're like, dude, take him. If you guys can get him the help he needs, like, like they're like
throwing him under the bus. Like,
I mean, we kind of did, but like they were gonna take him anyway. I mean, they already had him. Like he was going. He was going to the mental hospital.
He made his fucking bed.
He did. He did. He was going to the mental hospital, and he almost got us all thrown in jail on the way there.
And I mean,
we were
if
like,
this is
dude,
the kind of guy who goes out in the woods and eats fucking stuff to get weird, like, maybe a mental hospital was a good thing for him. Just for like a weekend or something,
Well, now, didn't that
Phil
cop...
eats stuff to get weird. That's
So I
for
remember
sure.
earlier in the night, Phil was taking a pipe and putting it to his ear and then making, like, the phone gesture and then putting his thumb to his mouth and was like... I think, like, hoping he could smoke the weed that way, but, like, it wasn't working. Well, that pipe, we never knew kind of what happened to it, but then that cop, he did say he wasn't going to bust this, but he pulled that... Okay, so the...
Oh, there was that one pipe. He's like, I'm taking this with me.
Yeah, the 5-foot hookah had, like a 2-ounce brass bowl on it, right?
Yeah.
And so Phil had, at some point during the night, put that pipe in the bowl of the hookah. And right before the cop left, he looks around, looks in the hookah bowl, grabs this tiny little blue glass pipe, and was like, "I'm taking this," and left. And that
It was like the last thing he did. He was just like, I'm taking this with me, and just walks out. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yeah.
like, you guys are just like,
dude,
God bless
that
America.
is yours. Yeah.
Fucking, that was our cop pipe. Like, we were saving it for you.
That one's all yours, buddy. Thank you for your service. Have a great night.
Yeah. So
You want something to pack in there on your way out? Because we can load that thing up for
in the
you.
fridge. Like, what do you need?
Oh my God.
Jesus.
yeah. So no real idea why they let us go that night. I mean, could have actually been he was just there to like take the call he took, but
right.
I suspect that there's issues of like, they can't really like search the place without a warrant.
Right, I mean, they were let in, but they were let in by someone who was not legally in his right mind and didn't live there, so that might have been part of it, but like, man.
there could have been some gray areas.
There's some
if
gray
it went
areas.
to court.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like it could have gone the other way.
I feel like you
It could
guys
have
got
gone
the
a really
right
bad way.
responders for that particular case. Because if there was some hotshot fucking type A cop who's like trying to climb the ladder, he might have been like, I'm real good at paperwork. Let's do this,
Totally. That could have been a field day for the right cop, and I, we again, I really feel like we had created some sort of reality bubble with this house where like
yeah,
the normal reality just couldn't fucking be, because there were so many times that it was like, why has our house not been raided yet? Like, everyone in fucking town knows what's going on in here. Like, why?
Well, at a certain point, it was like someone that we were selling mushrooms to, who was still in high school, got caught by their parents. Their parents knew my dad. This all gets back to my dad, and he called me and started threatening that he was going to call the cops on us, and that all these parents and everyone in town like knew who we were, and that the cops were already like watching us and stuff. And that's when we kind of toned the operation down, if not kind of completely killed it.
We slammed on the brakes at that point because they were. Apparently
at that point I would be like, "Are you cool, man?"
Yeah, we were.
Well, we did start, and then that was kind of the beginning of the end, because it was this sort of paradise where we were just like really cool with everyone, and then it did start getting to the point where we had to kind of question people, and like people we didn't know couldn't come over, and things started getting way weirder. So.
Well, okay, so because that happened right before the Shitwater incident. And then there was the Shitwater incident, and then Mikey joined an actual cult. Like a real actual cult.
Fuck.
And so, like, at that point, we were just trying to get out of that place as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
we were like,
Shitwater and cults, that's kind of a
move on,
deal breaker.
Get the fuck out before, like, this all comes crashing down on us. You know?
That was also to say nothing of the problems we were having with the upstairs neighbors, because we were assholes,
dude,
and set up a band room right under their bedroom,
and
would just practice it.
We were playing, like, just loud as fuck, like psychedelic noise rock underneath their bedrooms in the middle of the night.
I don't see why they had a problem with that.
We justified because, like, there was definitely some fucking domestic violence issues going on upstairs that, like...
That
and they may or may not have been legal citizens either.
Right.
So...
Right.
Yeah, it was...
At one point...
It was all real.
At one point before he joined the cult, I think Mikey was, like... on like coke or meth or something, and he had a gun. He owned a gun, but he didn't bring the gun. He took a butcher's knife and started walking up the stairs to like
to what end?
You know, like, I mean, this is being recorded. I don't really want to like basically say that our roommate was gonna murder the neighbors, but you can draw your own conclusions. So we had to drag him back down the stairs and like physically subdue him because he got so sick of hearing like the domestic violence going on upstairs. He was going to go take matters into his own hands.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he was on meth that night.
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your roommate had some potential mental issues.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, Mikey's a sweetheart and I love him, but he was the only guy who did powders in the house.
Yeah.
You know, and did them
we were very
with somewhat
much
of the frequency that we did psychedelics.
Yeah.
So
we were all into psychedelics. We were smoking weed, eating mushrooms, but like we were not okay with powders.
No.
So he would sit in his room and do powders by himself.
Oh, there's nothing weird and or creepy about that.
Yeah.
Nope.
Good Lord.
So yeah, a lot of fun things happened kind of all in like rapid succession at that point.
Yeah.
And then we all just like abandoned ship. You know, it was like we're sitting in the shit house throwing matches at the walls and like we need to get the fuck out before the whole shit house goes down in flames, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when Psycho Meth Dude is, like, joining a cult, I think maybe, you're right to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, there's just so many problems and so many things going on. It was just like, we all had to leave. Like, Mikey wanted to move out. We wanted to move out. The lease was up. It was just like, let's get out of here. But we did create something, like, pretty magical for a good, like, 6 months there.
Oh, yeah, man.
And some really cool shit went down in that house. Some really cool art projects. Some really cool music got made.
It's true. We're telling all the bad stories, but there were so many good stories, too. There were, like, really beautiful moments, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of really magical stuff happened.
Yeah, and, you know, just a lot of, like, friendships were kindled, and you know,
absolutely.
I don't know. It was cool for sure.
Yeah,
Still pretty close to several of the people who hung out there.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is you. Like,
Right.
I don't think it will surprise you to know that I had something very similar.
It would not surprise me to know, since we're weird mirrors of each other.
I know, right? Yeah, in fact, we had a big table in the middle of a room in a certain person's house with a sign on the wall that said "Sit long, talk much," and like that's what we did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Shitwater incident. That was a whole thing.
That was a whole thing. Yeah.
I don't even know if we have time for that whole story right now. Because there's so many stories from that basement apartment.
It was.
Well, I mean, I do want to know what the Shitwater was. I think our listeners will too. So as long as it's not going to take too long.
All right, fuck it.
The short version is.
Well, we can't do it and just do the short version. Like, if we're gonna tell it, let's just get into it. So, basically, what happened was we had a major rainstorm, and it flooded a lot of the city, and we were sort of in this, you know, low area was where our apartment was.
We were in a basement apartment in the floodplain.
Yeah.
Oh fuck!
Like right next to the creek that got flooded.
Yeah,
like when you read about this
calculations.
flood, it was the Spring Creek flood, and we lived a block away from Spring Creek.
This was 99, so this was the second one that wasn't nearly as bad. This wasn't the flood in 97.
You're right. This wasn't, but it was.
But it was
pretty
bad. It wasn't 97.
It
bad,
wasn't the
but
97 one.
But
You're right.
yeah.
This was not the fabled Spring Creek flood, but we lived right next to Spring Creek, and that's what would flood whenever it rained heavily. And we were also on a corner, so the pipes underneath our house met at a joint right under our house.
Oh shit!
And so shit tons of drainage came in from two directions.
Right.
Flooded the sewage system.
Yep.
Which then geysered up out of the
Every
floor
single
of our,
drain in our house.
Yeah, everything.
Because back then, drain systems storm drain systems were always attached to sewer systems.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I remember it starting, and I could be wrong, but the first thing I remember was Mikey came running, screaming out of the bathroom, holding a plunger, and was like, "It's shooting shit water everywhere!" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I peeked my head in there, and sure enough, out of the toilet is like spurts, like foot to 2 foot high spurts of sewage water shooting out of the toilet, and then I'm seeing water shooting out of the sink, and then I'm seeing water shooting out of the drain in the shower. Mm-hmm. And we're just like, what the fuck? And it's just like pouring.
It's coming out. And then
that's nasty.
Yeah, so it was
nasty.
It was coming out of the floor drain in the the furnace room.
We had like a mudroom.
There was a floor drain where because the water heater has to have something.
Yeah.
And it was just coming out of there. That's where the main lake came from.
The most of it came from. Yeah.
But then so anytime the people upstairs used any water whatsoever, since the whole drainage system is already totally clogged and overflowing into our house, there was nowhere for the water that they flushed down the drains to go.
It would just enter that sewer system.
If they flushed their toilet, whatever they had just flushed down, it came out of our toilet.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Yes. If they ran their sink, it came out of our pipes. If they took a shower, it would just dump out of everything. At some point,
this is the worst plumbing in the world.
Yeah, at some point, a pipe broke because they were doing laundry, and suddenly, just a waterfall came out of our kitchen wall. Remember that?
Yep, I do.
It just started literal waterfall just burst out of our kitchen wall and just started dumping.
Well, and this is Sane. This is
Sane. Yeah.
Sane.
And
Jesus
they wouldn't.
Christ.
We went upstairs and we asked them to stop running water until we could get the situation under control, and they didn't. They just flat out refused.
Well, I remember the woman was like, "Well, I only have 2 loads of laundry left."
Yeah,
but
we're like, dude, every time there's a literal waterfall dumping out of the wall into our kitchen.
Go ahead and finish your fucking laundry.
But go ahead and do your fucking 2 loads there,
So the other problem with this too was that this all happened on like a Friday afternoon, and we rented from some slumlord company, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And neither of us were on the lease. It was only Mikey, so it was
God.
Mikey's duty to get a hold of them. Like, we couldn't even call someone because we
He's
couldn't
the only one on the
admit to
lease.
them that we lived there.
And also, like, we really didn't want our landlords coming into our fucking house and
Yeah,
seeing
they had
what
not
we
seen
had
all
done
the
to
painting
it.
on the walls and all
That's-
the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, at this point, it became an emergency. But it's Friday night, and we're calling, and we're getting, and obviously, this is a property management company, so they probably have hundreds of rental properties that are all being affected by the flood.
Right.
Right. Their handyman is probably working 24/7 at this point, right?
Oh my God.
So we're just getting a recording that's like, you know, whatever's happening to you, we'll call you back on Monday.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, meanwhile, I mean, there, like, at this point, there is probably 2 inches of standing raw sewage on the floor of our apartment pretty much everywhere. There were a
much
couple
everywhere.
little islands of dry space, but at this point, we're like taking down closet doors and using them as bridges to climb between furniture. We're literally, like, it became like Waterworld, but it was Shitwater World. Yeah. It was like literally we're like we got all tribal, you know, like we're like
Did feel tribal.
yeah, it became like this tribal thing where like we're like sailing the fucking closet door canoe down the hallway of Shitwater to fucking, you know.
I'm gonna go throw up about something else. Be right back.
Yeah,
And,
it was foul. And it's like, none of us were on good terms with our parents, so we didn't really have anywhere to stay.
Right.
And like, all of our friends lived with their parents or were homeless also.
Right. I'm 19, but I was pretty much like the oldest one. So most of the kids we hung out with were like 16, 17, maybe 18 years old. And
So yeah, none of
they're
you
all
have the
living with their
wherewithal.
parents still. Like we had nowhere to go.
Yeah, so we just lived there.
We
that
lived
weekend.
like fucking animals
Yeah.
in this swamp of raw sewage for an entire weekend
Yeah.
before the fucking handyman of the property management company finally arrives on Monday.
Well, I can say that, like, you know, I'm guessing none of you got gangrene or sepsis. Or,
Somehow we didn't. Yeah.
So,
No.
I mean, like, good on you for sailing the seas of cheese on those fucking closet doors.
Well, pretty much, like-
We got real good at like Tarzaning our way from couch to couch.
Yeah, it had like soaked.
We built like a circuit of
the
bridges.
fucking forest
Yeah.
lava.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the
was.
ultimate game.
Guys.
The ultimate game of hot lava for sure.
Yeah, because it had soaked about half the living room carpet, and so there was like one half corner of the living room that was dry, and so we just sort of stayed there until we had to go piss, and then we'd go outside.
Yeah.
And
Well,
like,
yeah, because you can't use the toilet or
No.
it just
No.
ends up on the
No.
floor.
Yeah. That just makes it worse.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here was the crazy thing. Because we were also still a party house, and people were still just coming over, and we'd be like, yeah, like, shit's fucked here right now, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool, like, do you still want to smoke a bowl? We'd be like, I guess, you know, come on in. Like,
Not really, but actually, yeah, we need to do
yeah,
something
I mean,
to
I
forget
guess,
about
like,
this.
it's
Yeah.
not going to be better or worse with or without you, so come on in,
Yeah.
God.
hop on the bridge, we'll lead you to the dry corner of the
Yeah.
living room. Like,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so wretched.
The next shit ferry sets sail to the living room in 5 minutes.
God, I'd be like, don't you have a place where we can smoke this bowl that isn't covered in shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
But I, you know, like,
But we were that place
Yeah.
for all the fucking
Exactly.
teenage drug heads in town,
Like,
you
it's
know.
like I
that
can't smoke weed at my
our
mom's
house was the
so
place. Yeah.
I'm going to fucking Sane.
Yep.
yep.
So Monday morning rolls around. They finally send someone out to our house, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to tear out all the carpet in the house.
Of course.
But first, we need you to like remove anything and everything that's touching the floor. You know, like first of all, anything that was touching the floor was contaminated. You know, like
Yeah.
100%.
right, like
All that furniture is
75% of everything we owned had to be thrown away.
Yep.
At that point.
Yeah, I lost so many notebooks, art pieces,
Yeah.
clothes, just like
Right.
things
Everything.
that were just
Everything.
never
Well,
coming back.
because, I mean, let's be real, a lot of your shit was on the floor,
Right.
right?
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I was living.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, everything that had been within 2 inches of the floor is now just, like, toxic waste, like biohazard.
So anything that you had
Right.
managed to, like, put away on a shelf at some point
Right.
might have been okay.
But we still have to somehow, like, move all this shit-covered furniture out into the backyard so that they can tear out the carpet, right? And so we move everything we own out into the backyard, out onto the back porch, put it under, like, this series of tarps, because it's still fucking raining.
Well, no, hold on. We didn't put a tarp up because we thought that they were just going to do it all. But we moved everything out. They tore out our carpet, and then that guy was like, "Cool, my job's done."
Yeah.
And we were like, "Wait, you're not putting in carpet?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just the carpet removal guy."
Yeah.
I don't know when your carpet's coming.
Yeah, at some point in the next couple weeks, you'll get new carpet.
Fuck my life.
So that's when we
it's
built
like-
this little, like, shanty lean-to tarp thing to, like, try and keep all our shit from getting
yeah.
rained on.
So Shitwater World turned into Shit Town on the back porch?
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
Shit shanty town out on the back porch covered in tarps.
I didn't think the story could get weirder or
Oh
shittier.
no! Everything we own is under a tarp on the back porch, right?
Who
and
runs Potter Town?
and we're like sleeping on concrete. Like there's this. Our house is concrete basement floors with no carpet left on them. It's just concrete. And that's just what we had to live on until the fucking new carpet arrived, and we had no idea how long that was going to be.
Yep.
This sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, ideal living situation.
I don't remember how long it actually was.
It was only a couple days,
Yeah.
but it still was a couple days. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're like... Yeah,
They didn't tell us. Like, they were just like, yeah, no, my job's done here. You'll get new carpet when you get new carpet.
Well, and you still have no wherewithal with a landlord, so it's not like you
Right.
can be
We
like,
had no
where
recourse.
the fuck is our carpet?
There was nothing we could do or say because we were living there illegally.
No, and I think once we got it figured out, Mikey did go fuck off to his parents' house for like 4 days. Yeah. It was just like, I'm done with this place for now.
He did. He left us. He left us. Yeah.
Wow, so the one person who had a place to go is the one person who should have been taking care of business.
Right.
I mean, and like,
Well,
he
I
did.
mean, yeah,
He tried his
he-
best, but...
He didn't leave us high and dry. Like,
Okay.
he definitely...
Left you high and kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High and wet with shit water.
Yeah.
He definitely didn't fuck us over. And also, like, it's not his fucking responsibility. He's a tenant, not a fucking landlord. So,
Yeah.
like, it's not like it was his fucking responsibility and he just dumped it on
No,
us.
he made every effort to get them out there, but they
But
just weren't available.
he was also the only one that had parents who he could fall back on in an emergency,
Yeah.
and he did, and that's fine, because I would have too if I had been able to at that time.
Yeah,
so that was the Shitwater incident.
Yeah,
Gross.
it was super gross.
You're welcome, everyone. I'm responsible for pulling the taffy on that shit.
Yeah. And that was pretty much the culmination. Like, that was when Sane just kind of fell apart.
It did. We never really recovered from
No,
that.
no.
I mean, we lost so many things that we owned, and it's like, okay, well,
We were all just like, how do we get the fuck out of this house now?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
how quickly can we find a new place to live?
It's like, I don't even want to rebuild anymore. Like,
no,
let's just
you
all-
can't rebuild after that.
No.
We just gave up and abandoned the place.
The earth has been salted.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Or shat upon.
that was when we made the
It's
giant
been
migration
shorted.
to Ramblehood,
That's right.
which is a whole other set of stories.
Yep. And that's when I went and lived in Chelsea's garage, which is also a whole another set of stories. But so I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, fucking great to have you, man.
yeah, it's been great having you out here. I'm
It's-
glad that we were able to set this up and do
Yeah,
this.
yeah, fun. Remembering good times.
I know, right?
They were the best of times.
They're funny to look back on now.
Yeah,
being so far removed.
There were so many great times, but really the traumatic, terrible ones are the ones that are fun to tell stories about. you
Right,
know?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, that weekend was probably the worst. I mean, to this day, that probably was the worst weekend of my life, but I can look back and, like, laugh about it now.
Right.
Well,
I wish I could say that was the worst weekend of my life, but
Yeah, I don't know. That's actually
I've
100%
lived a lot of
not
life
true,
since
but
then. Yeah.
yeah,
maybe the worst biohazard weekend of your life.
definitely.